he who fights with monsters should see to it that he does not become one himself. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. A quote from a philosopher whose name has long been lost to the tides of time in the old Terra, that is always lurking in the back of your mind here in the 41st millennium. As you see, the search for knowledge can often lead you into finding what you seek. As I was lost in thought in my research about the warp, I decided to gather as much information as I can about the demons that inhabit such place. When all of a sudden, the walls around me started to close in, and the cold air rushed in from the otherwise peaceful and quiet night. As I realized, in a place where chaos reigns supreme, the only law that could possibly be is the survival of the fittest, taken to the most violent extreme. In this alternate reality of incalculable psychic power hidden in the darkness, 4 beings have accumulated such power that reign far above the rest of the common demons of the warp, each one of them creating and ruling over their own landscapes, shaped to their morbid vision of what reality should be. These beings are who we know about as the 4 Chaos Gods. So, I want to spend this evening telling you about these 4 terrifying entities, whose hatred for all things real is only surpassed by how much they despise each other, as each fiber of their being is corrupted with the need to destroy everything that isn't them. Let us begin with who I think is the easiest for us to understand. Cord, the god of war, whose entire reason to exist is to let the blood flow. It doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as it keeps flowing. Since the beginning of time, where the first animal committed the first killing, not out of need for food, but for anger, Korn celebrated and wished for more. And more he was granted, as in this galaxy you see there is no lack of conflict. On every planet, internal wars, no matter their scale, rage, forming a stream of blood and ash that takes us into the god of war, who is often represented as a shadowy figure with undefined features, barely forming what appears to be an ancient battle armor, blazing red eyes, and an aura of fire and bloody mist. But most prominently, a great sword that symbolizes its supremacy as the master of violence. Millions of victims whose skulls have been collected by his worshippers adorn the god's throne, where he sits and watches the killing unfold. Accumulating more and more power with each war, Korn is a simple concept to understand. As long as there is war, he is fulfilled. However, there is more than it initially may seem, for he also values honor, the act of facing your foe and defeating them in fair combat, survival of the fittest in a way. And what if you kill something that threatens your family and loved ones? He also smiles, as blood was shed. Commanding a horde of endless bloodthirsty demons of various forms and viciousness, he wages war on all reality. The only reason he has not conquered all the galaxy is because the only thing he hates more than you are the other 3 gods.
Blood for the blood god, skulls for the sculptor.
But what about those that don't pursue martial prowess, but knowledge? After all, knowledge is power. Why swing a sword and kill 1 person when you can summon a time-slowing bubble and kill 10 with a lightning strike? Or make a mighty space marine's blood boil from the inside, ignoring his impenetrable armor? You would need to conjure magic, and to do so you go to Sinch, the god of change and magic, also known as the unknowable. Is by far the most difficult to grasp in concept, as he thrived on scheming, manipulating, and making things happen with his will. He feeds off the energy of those gifted or cursed enough to tap into the warp, in search for power to cast a spell and solve their predicament. However, there is a price to pay for each step you take in this path, as every time you try to bend the warp to your will, the god of magic has an even harder hold on your mind, so that even if you are not engaged in any arcane behavior, you are still tempted to do so, slowly being taken over by an endless thirst for knowledge that you know is there, just waiting to be used. He is often represented as a giant bird-like figure with blue feathers. As the Lord of Change, he can take on any form that suits his needs for a plan. He may present himself to you as a regular person, asking if you can help him with a vermin problem terrorizing his farm with magic, so that he can get you to use the warp and become a spellcaster. He could also turn into 1,000 eyes looking at you from the night sky to terrorize a whole planet into becoming their follower. The God of Change is also the God of Hope, for you see, where there is suffering or ailment, there is the chance that your fate will change, that your luck may change, and you leave poverty and become a successful rich person who finds love. That anything that was troubling you fades away. However, as duality is the name with Sinch, he can also take it away in a whim. He is naturally opposed to Cord, as he prefers not to meet his enemies head-on, but to play long-run games of deception and lies.
It was small as black.
Continuing our journey through this twisted maze of horrors comes the third Chaos God, Nurgle, God of Plague. Every time something dies, it rots. When a pandemic kills millions, Nurgle smiles, as he knows that in the end, all circle back to him, as death and decay are inevitable. The God of Disease rules not with fear and hate, but actually in his own twisted way, with love, as his followers will acknowledge through their disease-ridden bodies. Nurgle loves you, just like you are. He brings ailments and terrible plagues that can devastate entire planets, so that his victims rot and come to an end. He is often represented as a gigantic humanoid, morbidly obese figure, with a horrifying smile, showing rotten fangs, and a slime-covered twisted tongue, with sickly pale light green skin surrounded by a green mist, often sporting a wand to command his army of followers, which are demons that sing in a cacophony of happiness as they all laugh and dance while they slowly but certainly advance, bringing death and an end to everything in sight. Just like the march of time itself, if you think about it. Nurgle stands for entropy and an end to all things, which in turn also means the end of a war, the end of a tyrant's rule, the end of a star, and even the end of a god, for better or worse, making him, in my opinion, the most powerful of them all. I even think he has already won, just that the rest of the beings don't know it yet. Then, what if you can't say no? Finally, we meet Slaanesh, the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and God of excess and pleasure. She who thirsts, as it's also known, is an entity born of pure depravity for all things sensory. For you see, what happens when your society has all their needs covered? You don't have to work, as food is instantly generated at a thought. You don't have to do anything, as all tedious and dangerous things are automated. And every other civilization has not even the most minuscule chance of opposing you. Such was the case of the Eldar millions of years ago. Without mentioning too much about those elf-like evil Xenos, they started to delve into what first seemed as an innocent and common things, like arts, crafts, cooking, and exploring. Then what about making love? Yes. What about making love to more people at the same time? Even better. Why have just one glass of wine when you can drink 7 bottles, knowing your medicine is so advanced that you will be fine? You drink while you kill. The Eldar, being a naturally psychic gifted race, actually experience pleasure in a more intense, different way. So when their entire civilization gave in into rampant hedonism, it all ended with a gigantic explosion that gave birth to Slaanesh, killing the overwhelming majority of the Eldar race instantaneously, and opening what we know today as the Eye of Terror, or Ocularis Terribus. But we will go deeper in that subject on another day, as I want to tell you more about Slaanesh and how she who thirsts is here now. The god our goddess of excess is often represented as a monstrous but attractive elder-like figure, with a partially nude body, often sporting horns and other types of mutations that stand for the need to always go for more. Usually surrounded by an army of demons that in search of infinite pleasure and excess distorted their bodies in service of their master. They seem to take everything to the extreme, which puts her in direct conflict with Korn, whose bloodlust is endless, and then begs the question, who can kill more? Who can lust more? As it's getting late now, I hope, dear listener, that you have a good night's sleep, knowing that even if there are 4 evil gods hungering for your soul, they may be too busy fighting among themselves for now.